Across landscapes without roads, ships, or states, certain stones moved quietly from their volcanic origins into distant human settlements. They left no written record, only sharp edges, buried fragments, and chemical traces in unfamiliar soil. Obsidian was one of them. Before coins, before banks, belief ruled the world. Obsidian is volcanic glass, formed when molten lava cools so rapidly that crystals cannot develop. Its internal structure allows it to fracture into edges sharper than almost any naturally occurring stone. For early human societies dependent on stone technology, this made obsidian exceptionally valuable for cutting, hunting, food preparation, and craft production. But obsidian did not occur everywhere. Its formation required specific geological conditions, limiting it to a small number of volcanic zones. Many communities lived far beyond the reach of these sources. Where obsidian was absent, other stones could be used, but none matched its sharpness, predictability, or efficiency. This imbalance created the conditions for exchange long before markets, merchants, or money existed. Archaeological evidence shows obsidian artifacts appearing hundreds, and sometimes over 1,000 kilometers from their geological origins. In the Near East, obsidian sourced from Anatolian volcanoes appears in settlements across the Levant and Mesopotamia. In Mesoamerica, obsidian from the Mexican highlands circulated widely into coastal regions and distant lowlands. Across the Pacific, obsidian from specific island sources moved through extensive maritime networks. We know this not by assumption, but by measurement. Each obsidian source contains a unique chemical composition shaped by the conditions of its volcanic formation. Using techniques such as X-ray fluorescence analysis, archaeologists can match an artifact to its precise geological origin. A blade buried in a distant village can be traced back to a specific mountain, sometimes to a single volcanic flow. Beyond its origin, we can also examine its biography. Through a method known as obsidian hydration dating, researchers measure the microscopic layer of water that accumulates on the surface of the stone from the moment it is fractured. Over time, this hydration layer thickens at a measurable rate under known environmental conditions. By analyzing this layer, scientists can estimate when a tool was first struck by human hands. This does not produce an exact calendar date, but it provides a chronological range grounded in material evidence. Together, chemical sourcing and hydration dating allow us to see both where the stone came from and approximately when it entered circulation. They reveal that these exchange networks were not temporary or accidental. They functioned with continuity, often persisting for centuries and, in some regions, for millennia. This scientific fingerprinting confirms the scale and durability of movement with precision. It shows that obsidian was not drifting gradually through chance contact. It was carried deliberately across immense distances within stable systems of exchange. These movements did not follow modern trade logic. There was no single trader transporting obsidian from source to destination. Instead, exchange occurred through systems archaeologists describe as down-the-line trade. In this model, obsidian moved gradually through chains of communities. Each group traded a portion onward, keeping some for local use. With every exchange, quantity diminished, but reach expanded. No authority coordinated this movement. It relied on repeated, predictable relationships, kinship ties, seasonal encounters, intermarriage, and reciprocal obligation. Trust accumulated locally, then propagated outward. In some regions, obsidian also circulated through prestige exchange networks. High-quality blades, or carefully prepared cores, moved selectively between influential individuals. Here, obsidian reinforced alliances and status, rather than daily subsistence. But obsidian was not simply found and exchanged. It had to be extracted, transported, and transformed. At volcanic sources, obsidian occurred in nodules or flows that required careful quarrying. Raw obsidian was dense, brittle, and dangerously sharp. Extraction carried risk even before the stone was moved. Transport added further cost. Obsidian is heavy. Carrying large quantities across uneven terrain demanded strength, time, and calories. The journey exposed carriers to injury, exhaustion, and environmental danger. This friction mattered. Every kilometer increased value. Distance was not abstract, it was felt in the body. Once transported, obsidian still required skilled transformation. Stone knapping, the controlled fracturing of stone, demanded years of practice. Producing advanced blades required precise preparation of the core and exact control of force. This expertise produced the prismatic blade, a long, narrow flake with parallel edges struck from a carefully prepared core. Unlike a simple broken shard, the prismatic blade was a feat of engineering. Its edges were predictable. Its dimensions were consistent. It could be fitted into wooden or bone handles with extraordinary precision. Because these blades were uniform, the tools they created became replaceable. A worn edge could be removed and substituted without remaking the entire implement. This introduced a new logic. Communities were no longer trading merely for stone. They were trading for a specific, reliable form. This consistency allowed specialized craft traditions to emerge. Builders, butchers, and artisans could depend on their tools performing the same way, every time. Work became repeatable. Skills became transferable. The obsidian blade functioned as a standardized component. Long before factories or machines, societies were already organizing labor around predictable parts. In this sense, the obsidian blade represents the earliest form of proto-industrial thinking. A system locked into a specific way of working, sustained by trust in material consistency. At many sites, archaeologists have identified lithic workshops where obsidian was shaped in large quantities. These spaces concentrated skill, time, and risk. Mistakes shattered value, success multiplied it. The value of obsidian did not lie only in geological rarity, it lay in the labor embedded within it. A finished blade represented quarrying, transport, expertise, and trust compressed into a single object. This explains why communities were willing to exchange food surpluses, hides, or other valuable resources for pieces of volcanic glass. At the Neolithic site of Çatalhöyük, known today as Çatalhöyük in central Anatolia, obsidian was central to daily life. Located near major sources, the settlement produced obsidian tools in large quantities. Artifacts from these sources appear widely across surrounding regions. Within the settlement, obsidian served practical needs: cutting, scraping, and craft production. But it also appeared in burials and symbolic contexts. Some pieces were worked beyond functional necessity. Others were placed with the dead. Here, obsidian crossed a threshold. It began to carry meaning beyond use. In later societies, particularly in Mesoamerica, Obsidian took on overt ritual roles. Polished obsidian mirrors became associated with divination and authority. In these contexts, the material no longer merely cut. It represented power. This transition did not erase obsidian's practical value. It layered symbolic significance onto an already trusted material. Obsidian demonstrates how value can expand without abstraction. Utility, labor, scarcity, risk, and symbolism coexisted in the same object. The circulation of obsidian created economic landscapes without currency. Networks formed where no state enforced contracts and no written ledger recorded debt. Control over obsidian sources could bring influence, but rarely absolute domination. Extraction sites did not become fortified capitals. Value moved outward rather than being hoarded. Long-distance exchange strengthened interdependence rather than hierarchy. It connected communities without subordinating them. Over time, obsidian's dominance declined as metal technologies spread. Metal tools were more durable and less geographically constrained. Stone lost its strategic centrality, but the networks obsidian created did not disappear. They adapted, carrying new materials and new forms of value along paths already established. The infrastructure of trust outlived the material that first made it visible. In the next episode, we will examine how early societies recorded obligations before writing itself existed. We will look at the first ledgers, not made of paper or clay, but of memory, tally, and shared expectation.